I told my wife I was working late. She watched my location stop at the same hotel over and over. And one evening, she finally decided to end everything. The night my whole life lit up on my wife's cracked iPhone screen, little blue dots marking every lie ID told. I finally understood just how perfectly I had ruined everything. You could trace my betrayal with your fingertip, city street by city street, all the way from our front door to the hotel where I kept saying I was working late. But that night came much later. Before all of that, I would have told you I was a blessed man. Ordinary, sure, but blessed. My name's Daniel. I'm 42, born and raised in Ohio, now living in a quiet little suburb outside Chicago. The kind of place with cul-de-sacs and chalk drawings on the sidewalks and neighbors who wave when they drive by. Back then, my world was pretty simple. My wife, Emily, our 2 kids, and a house that always smelled faintly like coffee and laundry detergent. I used to love waking up before everyone else. I'd stand at the kitchen window with a mug in my hand, watching the sun hit the kids' bikes dumped in the yard, the swing on the maple tree moving just a little in the morning breeze. Some days I'd think, this is it. This is all I ever wanted. Emily would come downstairs in one of my old college t-shirts, hair pulled up, eyes still sleepy. She never looked like those airbrushed women in magazines, and thank God for that. She looked real. My real. She'd bump my shoulder with hers and say, "You're hogging the coffee again, counselor," like she did every morning. Our kids would thunder down the stairs a few minutes later. Lily, 10 at the time, all elbows and energy, already half in the teenage years. Ben, 7, still small enough to crawl onto my lap without being embarrassed. Mornings were loud and messy and full of cereal on the floor and lost homework and reminders about soccer practice. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Sundays were my favorite. Church in the morning, then pancakes at that cramped diner on the corner where the waitress knew our names and always brought extra whipped cream for the kids. Emily would sit across from me in the booth, legs tucked under her, talking about school projects and PTA meetings and the new family 3 houses down. Sometimes I'd catch her laughing with Lily about something, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear the way she did when she was really listening. And I'd feel this wave of I don't even know gratitude, maybe. Like I'd somehow cheated the system and gotten more than I deserved. We weren't perfect. We had bills and stress, and nights when we were both too tired to do anything but fall asleep with the TV still on. We snapped at each other sometimes over stupid things. Who forgot the milk, who was late picking up Ben, who left the wet towels on the bed again. But underneath all of that, there was this quiet, steady thing. A trust. A belief that we were on the same team. If you'd asked anyone back then, they would have told you we were solid. Emily and Dan? They're rock steady. We were the couple people asked to watch their kids, the ones who hosted backyard barbecues and school fundraisers. Our Christmas cards looked like something off a store rack. Matching sweaters, forced smiles, the whole deal. And the worst part, the part that keeps me up at night even now, is that they weren't wrong. We were happy. At least, until I started telling myself that I deserved more than happy. I can't tell you the exact moment I stopped being the man my wife believed I was. It didn't happen in one night. It was slower than that, almost boring in how it started. Just a bunch of tiny choices I kept calling no big deal. Her name was Claire. She was my new secretary at the firm. Mid-20s, sharp, organized, always one step ahead of me on schedules and filings. First week she was there, she dropped a stack of briefs on my desk and said, "You know, you're the only partner here who actually says thank you when someone does something." I laughed it off. Low bar. But I remembered it. Started with jokes. Little things in the office when cases dragged on too long and we were both tired. She'd tease me about how I still carried a paper planner. I'd tease her about the enormous iced coffees she showed up with every morning. Felt harmless, just office chatter. Then one night we were the last ones at the firm. Rain was beating against the windows, lights dimmed in the hallways, that weird quiet you only get in buildings meant to be full of people. I was finishing a motion, she was updating client files. "You ever go home and just keep working in your head?" she asked, leaning against my doorframe. I laughed. All the time. We talked for a while. Not about anything big. shows we liked, places we wanted to travel, how she hated the winters here. But when I finally checked my watch, it was almost 9. I texted Emily, running behind, big filing tomorrow. She sent back a thumbs up and a heart. No questions. That became a pattern. Late nights at the office that actually were at the office for a while. Shared takeout, shared complaints, shared eye rolls about difficult clients. It felt good to be seen as more than dad or Emily's husband or the responsible one. One Friday, as she handed me a file, her fingers brushed mine. Just a second too long. We both paused. The air shifted. Could have stepped back. I should have. Instead, I smiled like it was nothing and made a joke. But from that moment on, every boundary ID built around my marriage started to look negotiable. If you ask Emily now when she first knew something was wrong, she'll probably say before he did. At the time, I thought I was being careful. Started with my phone. That's where the cracks showed up first. I used to leave it anywhere, on the counter, on the couch, plugged in by the bed. If it buzzed, Emily might glance, answer my mom, text back a buddy. It wasn't a big deal. Our lives were so tangled together there was nothing to hide. Then there was. At first it was small stuff. I started keeping the phone in my pocket all the time. Took it with me to the bathroom. Screen turned face down on the table. Lock screen changed from swipe to open to a 6-digit code I told her was for security. She laughed. What, you joining the CIA now? Firm policy, I lied, not even blinking. Little things added up. I stopped leaving my laptop open on the kitchen table. I started deleting whole text threads. I turned off message previews, killed location sharing because it drains the battery. Emily isn't stupid. She didn't yell or accuse me at first. She watched. I remember one Tuesday night, I was tying my shoes by the door, shirt half tucked, already late. You're heading back to the office again? She asked, drying a dish with slow, careful movements. Yeah, I said, avoiding her eyes. That Peterson case. We're up against the deadline. She nodded, but there was this silence that landed between us like a brick. You want coffee for the road? She asked after a beat. Sure, I said, relieved. You're the best. Later, I find out that night she opened the family laptop and logged into our phone account. Pulled up the call logs. The data usage, the weird spikes in locations, numbers that weren't labeled, late-night calls to the same unknown contact. Over the next few weeks, I noticed small changes. One day, I went to text Emily and saw that little location sharing arrow next to my name in our messages. I turned it off, claiming it was creepy how phones tracked everything now. She just said, huh, and went back to chopping carrots. Another night, I told her I was grabbing drinks with a client. She said, which restaurant? Too quickly, like she was making a mental note. Downtown, I said. That steak place by the river. I could feel her eyes on my back as I walked out. What I didn't know then was that she'd already figured out how to check my phone's location through our account. That she sat on the couch that night, kids finally in bed, watching that little dot on the map stop not at a restaurant but at a hotel 10 miles away from my office. She didn't call. She didn't show up. She just watched it sit there. If you've never had your life reduced to a blinking dot on a screen, you might not understand how much truth can fit into something that small. By the time I climbed into bed that night, whispering another lie about long negotiations, Emily had more truth about my evenings than I was willing to admit to myself. The day it all blew up didn't start like a disaster. It started like any other Thursday. I remember pulling on my tie in the mirror, practicing the same old lie in my head. Late meeting tonight, don't wait up, and feeling that familiar, sick twist in my stomach. I told myself it was just stress. Guilt with a nicer name. Emily was at the kitchen table, packing Ben's lunch. Lily was pretending not to rush, scrolling through her phone instead of tying her shoes. It all looked so normal it almost convinced me. Hey, Emily said, eyes on the sandwich she was cutting. Can you swing by the dry cleaner today? Yeah, sure, I said. Text me the ticket number. She nodded, but she didn't look at me. Not really. Just this quick, careful glance, like she was checking something off a list. I should have seen it then. Work was a blur. I checked my phone more than usual, half expecting some emergency from home, half afraid of nothing at all. Around 4, I got a text from Emily. "We need to talk tonight. Can you be home by 6? My chest went cold. No emojis. No heart. Just that sentence. I told Claire I had to leave early. She tilted her head. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, I lied. Family stuff." Driving home, my hands were sweating on the steering wheel. Every bad scenario played in my head, but I still kept telling myself maybe it was about bills or the kids or her parents. Anything but what it really was. When I walked in, the house was too quiet. No TV, no music, no kids. Emily was sitting at the dining table with a folder in front of her. Our wedding photo propped up beside it like some kind of witness. "Where are the kids?" I asked. "Mom picked them up," she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "Sit down, Daniel." I sat. She slid her phone across the table. The screen was open to a map, my location history lit up like a crime scene. Same hotel, same nights, over and over. "I called the number you keep deleting," she said quietly. She was very honest. I couldn't breathe. My mouth moved, but nothing came out. "I'm not going to scream," Emily said. Her eyes were shiny but steady. "I'm done screaming into places you don't listen." She opened the folder. Papers. Neat, organized, terrifying. "I talked to a lawyer," she said. "I'm filing for divorce." The word landed like a punch. I felt everything tilt. "Emily, wait. Please. We can—" "No," she said, and her voice broke on that one word. "You already chose Daniel. You chose every time you drove to that hotel instead of coming home." I reached for her hand. She moved it away like my touch burned. "For the kids' sake," she whispered, "I need this to be clear. There's no coming back from this." I used to think the worst sound in the world was a slammed door. Turns out it's a pen scratching your name onto divorce papers while your wife won't even look at you. I always thought getting kicked out meant yelling, suitcase on the lawn, neighbors pretending not to stare. Turns out it can look like a quiet Saturday morning with birds chirping and a minivan parked in the driveway. We signed the final papers on a Wednesday. By Friday, the plan was set. Emily and the kids would stay in the house. I'd take my car, my clothes, my law books, and not much else. It was my choice to leave everything, savings, furniture, the house itself. Part guilt, part love. Mostly guilt, if I'm honest. The morning I moved out, the house felt smaller somehow. There were boxes in the hallway, but only 3 with my name on them. Funny how a whole life can shrink that much. Lily stayed upstairs, door closed. She'd barely spoken to me in days. Every time I tried, she'd look at me like I was some stranger who'd wandered into her house by mistake. Ben hovered by the stairs, clutching that stuffed dinosaur ID bought him when he was 3. "You're still gonna come to my games, right?" he asked, voice wobbly. I knelt down so we were eye level. "They'll be there," I said. "Every time they let me." He nodded, but I could see he wasn't sure what they meant, or what any of this meant. Really. Emily stood by the kitchen counter, arms folded, watching but not stopping me. She wasn't cruel about it. No cutting remarks, no dramatic speeches. Just this tired, distant kindness that hurt worse than anger. "They'll set up the auto transfers," I said, trying to sound like a responsible adult instead of a man whose chest was caving in. "Mortgage, school stuff, all of it. You won't have to worry." She nodded. "Thank you." 2 words I'd heard 1,000 times before from her. They used to feel warm. Today they felt like a receipt. When I picked up the last box, I paused in the doorway of what used to be our bedroom. The unmade bed, her book on the nightstand, the dent in the mattress on my side already starting to rise. You don't think about stuff like that, how even a bed can slowly forget you. At the front door, I turned to Emily. "I'm sorry," I said. I'd said it before, but this time it felt like dropping a stone into a well with no bottom. She swallowed, eyes glistening. "I know," she said, "but our kids need a home that isn't built on lies, Daniel." There was nothing to argue with in that. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have. I loaded the last box into the trunk and just stood there for a second, hand on the lid, staring at the house. The swing in the yard, the chalk fading on the driveway, the kitchen window where I used to drink my morning coffee and think I had it all. I closed the trunk, walked to Emila's side of the car where she stood, arms wrapped around herself. "You keep the keys," I said, holding them out. "All of them." She hesitated, then took them from my hand. That tiny jingle of metal sounded like the final snap of a door shutting that I'd been inching closed for months. As I pulled away, I checked the rearview mirror out of habit. The house got smaller, then turned into just another shape on the street, then disappeared. People say time heals everything. Maybe it does. I don't know. What I do know is that some choices don't get undone. Some bridges don't burn all at once. They rot quietly under your feet until one day you take a step and they're just gone. I had a happy life once. A good wife. 2 incredible kids. A home. I traded it all for a handful of moments I can barely even remember clearly now, and a story about myself I wanted to believe that I deserved more. Funny thing is, in the end, I got exactly what I deserved. And they, thank God, got to keep what was left.